Today, this video is going to show you guys how to use tree diagrams. One way for me to show you about tree diagrams for those people who play sports is to look at a tournament bracket. You can see on the far right side, this would be where all the teams are listed when you first start the tournament. Then as each team wins, then you move forward to progress all the way to the final winner. So when we have a question that says, how many total outcomes might there be in a situation, we would think about how many total teams start out a tournament. The total is always going to be over at the far right. Now we're going to look at some math scenarios for using a tree diagram. All right, let's look at this first scenario. It says Jack is going to order a sandwich for his lunch at a local deli. They have 2 choices of bread, 3 choices of meat, and 2 choices of cheese. The tree diagram below shows the possible outcomes Jack can order for his lunch. When you look back at this story problem, it tells you the categories are what's going to happen. He is going to get 2 choices of bread. So I'm going to highlight the important information in the story problem. He's going to get 3 choices of meat. And he's going to get 2 choices of cheese. Now, if you look down in the tree diagram, you'll also see these same main categories. We have bread, meat, and cheese. In the tree diagram, it tells you specifically how many kinds of bread there are. Okay, here's the first kind, white bread. Here's the second kind, wheat bread. So these 2 things follow along what it says in the story problem, 2 choices. When you look at meat, it doesn't tell us in the word problem how many or what kind, but when you look underneath, it shows you that you have ham, turkey, and chicken. Then the same thing for underneath cheese, the story problem says 2, and when you look under cheese directly from each sandwich, it tells you your 2 choices of cheese. So this is how we're going to read it. The first question on your notes handout says, where would you look in the tree diagram to find the total number of outcomes? And how many total outcomes are there? So the specific thing I'm looking for is finding the total number of outcomes. It's really important to know what specific thing you're looking for so you can go to the correct spot in your tree diagram. The total number of outcomes is going to be at the end after your last category. So for this tree diagram, it's going to be in the far right. So that's what I'm going to write on that line for the first answer. Total outcomes look at the far right. The total number of outcomes, you would look at the far right. So the second thing when you look in the story or at the end for the question, the second thing it asks for is how many total outcomes are there? How many total outcomes are there? So to get that, I'm simply going to look at the far right because that's where I said I would go, and I'm going to count how many there are. Or you can highlight them or you can put a check mark. So I'm going to just put lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I know that there's 12 total outcomes. The second question on your handout says, how can you use the wording only to find the total number of outcomes? So if I were to look up at the top where I have my categories, I have bread, I have meat, and I have cheese. If you think back to the story problem, it said that we had 2 types of bread. Okay, it said we had 3 types of meat, and we had 2 types of cheese. So if all I want to do is find out what the total is going to be over on the far end, without me having to count these, this is going to be super easy. All you do is you take the number for each category. So 2 types of bread times 3 types of meat times 2 types of cheese. All the quantities, and you multiply them together. So 2 times 3 is 6, and then 6 times 2 is 12. And we had already counted this up from the last one, so we know that 12 is going to be the right answer. Super simple. If you need to know the total number of outcomes, just the number, you take how many there would be in each category, and you just multiply them. The third question, which is on your second page of your handout, says, where would you look to find the number of sandwiches that have cheddar cheese? And how many outcomes will have cheddar cheese? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what is it asking for. I want to know cheddar cheese. And the way I would know, in your tree diagram, the spot you're going to go look for is underneath cheese. This is where I would look at. I would look in this column under that category. The second part of the question that actually wants us to do something says how many outcomes would have cheddar cheese. How many outcomes will have cheddar cheese? And to count that up, all you're going to do is look under the cheese column, and you're going to count how many times you see the word cheese. So I'm going over here to this last column. I'm going to check mark, highlight, circle, or count how many times you see cheddar. So for me, I'm going to color them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's what I would put as my final answer, that 6 outcomes have cheddar cheese. 6 outcomes have cheddar cheese. The last question on the handout you have, it says, how can you tell the number of sandwiches that will have turkey? I'm going to highlight that important information. I want to know the number of sandwiches that have turkey. So that's important. I'm going to look where turkey is in the tree diagram. So it's in the center column. Turkey is a type of meat. Turkey is not the last choice when you're making your sandwich. You also have to go out and pick your cheese. So when I go through, like last time, and we looked for cheddar, I'm again going to go look and see where do I have turkey. It's in 2 spots. But because the sandwich doesn't end with choosing your meat, you have to go out and also choose your cheese. I have to also connect that with turkey. So I can have a turkey sandwich with cheddar. I can have a turkey sandwich with Swiss. I can have another turkey sandwich with cheddar, and I can have another turkey sandwich with Swiss. So when I get ready to say how many total sandwiches have turkey, I can't just say 2 because I see the word turkey twice. I have to see how many of these little branches are coming off of the word turkey. So I have 2 up here, and I have 2 right here. So that means altogether, I actually have 4 sandwiches that have turkey. So if your last choice doesn't end the column of your tree diagram, you're also going to have to look and see how many other outcomes are branching out from that choice it's directing you to. So we're at the end of our notes, and everybody in my class, if you guys can please go get your scissors and glue, cut those 2 things of notes out and attach them to the next 2 pages in your composition notebook. Don't forget to update your table of contents. The homework for you is on my teacher page, normally where you can find it under notes and homework. And the title of the homework should be at the very top thing to choose. It says Wednesday 12-6 homework. And the title of it is 6.2 Tree Diagrams. So load that into your note app and I will see you tomorrow.